Hey everybody, excuse the doona stuck up here. I've got the heat on and I closed that part of the room off so it stays a bit warmer and doesn't cost so much in electricity. And now speaking of costs and budgeting and so forth, I know that many of you are wanting to know how you can do the kinds of things that you need to do to prepare for desert touring, but to do it on a budget. Now, because of my recent life history, I have to operate on a budget as well. I can't start this business up and just go and spend the kind of money that I used to be able to spend when I had a bunch of employees and we were doing, mining and exploration company training and training for all the ambulance people and everything else. So we had a fairly substantial budget. I'm going to have to do it like the rest of you are going to have to do it, probably even more tightly budgeted than some of you, as I have zero savings and I'm relying on what I can save between now and the start and what these trips are going to earn me for how I get around to setting up this vehicle. So that probably some of you in very similar circumstances following COVID and all the rest of it. So what am I going to do? Well, let's do a little bit of an introduction, and then piece by piece, as I do each thing, I'll make another video on each aspect of what I'm doing. And the first thing that I always try to do, as I've said in a number of videos now, is I try to work out what is critical. What things do I really, really need to make sure that I do? Now, clearly, making sure your vehicle is in good condition and ready to take on this kind of terrain is the single most important thing. So obviously tyres will be a big factor, but I'm not going to get round to tyres until I have to. That will likely be just before I leave. Okay, so as I said, I like to have brand new tyres if I can. So we're going to leave that till May 2022. And we'll be leaving in late May, so in the last couple of weeks. As far as all the other work that we might do on a vehicle, I want to make sure that's done with a month to spare, so that if there are any issues, things haven't been fitted properly or whatever, that I've got a month to find that out before I hit the road. So, what sorts of things am I going to be doing? Well, the Prado, which is affectionately known as Harpy, needs some things. One of the things it needs most doing is the bushes in the suspension. So that will be one of the priority items, is to make sure those bushes are replaced. While I'm doing that, I'll be inspecting the shock absorbers in the springs, and since I'm just doing central red centre desert tours, they're not as super critical as they would be if I was doing the Cape or the Kenning especially. So we'll take a look at those at the time and we'll make a decision about what we do. Will we go all out and buy my favoured shock absorbers? Will we buy none? Or will we go somewhere in between for the moment? Let's wait and find out. The other thing that we need to do is we need to fit a UHF radio. Now, I would like my UHF radio, and for that matter my HF radio if necessary, to go on the bull bar, although I would prefer the HF radio to go on the back on the spare tyre mount. So, if I can't afford to do both, it makes sense that what I should do is fit the bull bar, because then I can fit both antennas on there and no extra cost. It's just the bull bar cost, something that I'm going to need ultimately anyway. The car presently has no bull bar. So I'll be buying an inexpensive steel bull bar with a winch mount. A winch mount into which I can install, at least a 9,000 pound winch with synthetic rope. Now, will I put the winch in this first year? No, I definitely won't. I'll have the winch for when I do Cape York. But the bull bar, we can install that, we can fit the UHF antenna. If we need to, we can fit the HF antenna on the bull bar, rather than spend money excuse me, on installing it on the back, which costs a bit more. So what else are we going to do? So as I said, I'll be fitting an inexpensive steel bull bar as kind of a priority after looking at the suspension bushes. Now, what's next in my priority list? Well, I need a fridge. And if I need a fridge, I need an auxiliary battery. Now, I don't know if the Parado has an auxiliary battery at the moment because I haven't been able to go and inspect it, but I suspect it hasn't. And so my very next step will be to fit an auxiliary battery so that I can run a fridge. And I'll be doing what I've done in every other situation. I won't be fitting an AGM battery. One of the reasons for that is not so much to do with the specialised charging that's required for an AGM battery, but more to do with the fact that they are super heavy. So I'll be using a standard, very high CCA, maybe 800 CCA starter battery, just an ordinary lead acid flooded cell car battery. And the charging system that I will most likely be using will be initially one that I build myself using a 40 amp relay and some wire. And I'll install that myself. I'll have a couple of spare relays, not that I've ever needed them, but that's what I'll do. Now, there is an even simpler way to set up a dual battery system, and it's called the idiot switch method. And I've used this in emergency situations where, for instance, I had a 200 series cruiser come along on the Canning stock route one time, and the auxiliary battery smart relay decided to die. So this person wasn't able to keep their fridge running on the Canning, which is a very long trip. So they were quite distraught, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, well, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to recommend that we put an idiot switch in. And they just kind of looked at me weird. So what we did is I took some of my spare wire and I put 2 terminals on, and I connected one terminal to the normal starter battery. I connected the other terminal to the auxiliary battery, which happened to be just an ordinary starter battery. And in between the two, I put a large capacity, large amperage switch. And I said to the people, when you start your car in the morning, have your bonnet up. Come under the bonnet, turn that switch on so you connect the 2 batteries together. Drive all day, leave your car running, morning tea and lunchtime. And whenever you switch off your car, for instance at the end of the day, make sure that you come out under the bonnet and throw that switch over, because if you don't, you will flatten your starter battery, or you may flatten your starter battery. So that's the idiot switch, so called because if you're the idiot who forgets to switch it off when you stop running the car, you'll flatten your battery. But it works, right? So I won't be doing that. I'll be installing a relay that's operated by the alternator charge light or something similar. So then, what else is essential for me in terms of the vehicle? We've talked about suspension, checking that all the bushes are okay. While we're there, we'll check the other suspension components, the auxiliary battery, so we can run a fridge. So if we have to buy a fridge, I don't have a fridge anymore. I had absolutely the best fridge freezer combination that was ever made, Australian built, Explorer fridge freezer, dual zone, variable speed controller on the Danfoss 5 compressor, fabulous aluminium, strong aluminium case, fantastic fridge. You can still buy them second hand, new old stock, but they cost over $2,000. I can't afford that at the moment. I'm looking at the King's 75 litre, even though that's too big for me. I would rather it be 56 litre. I'll look at this 75 litre dual zone fridge, so separate freezer, separate fridge, separate thermostats. That's the way I like to have it. Because I'm not just going on an 8-day trip, I'm going, several months at a time. So that's what I'll be looking at. It's a shame it's a 75. It's a little too big for me. Anyway, so that's another priority. Then, what else is a priority for me? In terms of the vehicle, it has a roof rack, so that's good. What I need to do is I need to fit a holder for a couple of things. A holder for my shovel, which is an essential item, long-handled post-hole shovel. That's what you need, right? I'll be fitting that on the side of the roof rack somewhere. And also I need to be able to fit my axe somewhere. Now I favour a 3/4 size axe, even though that's harder to use. I find it easier to pack away in the car. So my axe will be a Nilfisk 3/4 size axe. And that for me works perfectly well. Will I have a high lift jack, what we used to call many years ago a wallaby jack? I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't need it for the main purpose that I used to use it for. That is to break the bead on tyres. So I kind of am always amused by people who have these high lift jacks, because typically there's nowhere to use them to lift the car up. Modern cars just don't have places where you can lift. Now you can buy the bull bar that has the fitting in there, excuse me, to lift the car up via the bull bar, or even sometimes the dual wheel carrier on the back. But the problem with that is, with a 4-wheel drive vehicle that has so much articulation, so much wheel travel, if you're trying to lift the wheel up, it doesn't work. So, for me, they're kind of not necessary. So will I get one or not? I don't know. We'll see. I'll get one ultimately, but probably not for the first year. But the shovel and the axe are necessary for me. So that's the mods that I'm going to have for now. Now the other one, and I'm not made up my mind yet which way I'm going to go here, though I suspect I will be, if I can afford to, fitting an endless air compressor. I do have standalone kind of compressors, but for pumping my clients' tyres, being able to pump a tyre from dead flat to road pressures in 30 or 40 seconds is perfect. So it's worth the money for me. Whether I'll have the money or not, I don't know, but I'd like to fit an endless air compressor. So for those of you who don't know what that is a modified air conditioner compressor, very high capacity air conditioner compressor that runs off either a separate belt or off a longer version of the serpentine belt. Requires a mount, which costs about $350, and then it requires the compressor as well. So they're not cheap, but they are superb pieces of equipment if they can be fitted to the car. I know they can be fitted to a 120 Prado, so that's probably how I'm going to go. If I don't go that way, then I'll be fitting, I'll just be carrying several portable compressors. Then tyre repair equipment. I no longer have very much tyre repair equipment. I still have my big rubber mallets and my old tyre levers, which are the main pieces I need. So I just need various kinds of patches and things. So we'll be getting those as well. What else do I need in terms of being able to operate my tour? Excuse me. I need some lighting. So LED lighting, which will have some fitted to the roof rack of the car, some fitted to a standalone kind of stand that we can dig into the sand or pop up on the clay. I'll need, barbecue plates, and I still got quite a few of my camp ovens, but we'll need to replenish some of the cooking equipment that I provide for my clients to be able to cook. So that will be something else. Those barbecue plates are $100 a piece, can you believe? Wow. I remember when they were a lot cheaper than that. Excuse me. What else will I need? I'll need a toilet tent. I no longer have any. I usually carry 2, and the reason for that is they can break. And if we don't have a toilet tent, that might get a bit difficult. So I always try to carry 2 of those. I do have my toilet, so that's ready to go. I do need a shower tent. Now I can tell you what I provide for you, which is a 2-room shower tent. Now why 2 rooms? Well, nobody wants to get changed in the wet area, right? So there's a dry area, wet area. Close the door between the two while you're having your shower, although it's typically not a shower, it's just a bit of water in a bucket with a washer, because we have to conserve water. But there's a wet area and a dry area, so we need those. So that's other stuff that I have to get. What else do I have to do to the car? Oh, I need a spare wheel. I'm going to try to have 2 whole spare wheels, whereas you really just need the tyre on a wheel as 1 spare, and then just a spare tyre. If you can't carry 2 wheels, that's fine. Just have a spare tyre that's not on a wheel, plus your normal spare. I'll try to have 2 whole spares, so I've got to get myself another wheel, and I've got to fit a tyre to that. And I've already mentioned that we'll do the tyres later on. So that's probably it for the car, apart from setting up the storage, etc. And of course the water carrying, which I'm leaning towards a footwell type system, which I think in a Prado will have to be 2 footwell bladders, and we'll see what we can get set up there. It will be likely just gravity feed. There won't be any pumps or anything like that. What else do we need to get going here? I'm trying to give you this information so you can think about, not only what I have to go through to start again with my business, but also some ideas about what I'll be covering, so that if you want to learn about how you can do some of these things for your car on a budget, then you'll be able to follow along. I do have a swag, but I'm really tempted to buy myself a new one. My swag is getting beyond it. It's a little bit old. So I'll be probably getting myself a new swag. I'll definitely need some kind of shelter for myself and my clients for if it rains in the desert, which it sometimes does. If we're having lunch or something in the side of the track, it's nothing. We don't really want to be standing around in the rain now, do we? So that kind of thing. I think that's probably about it. But what I will say to you is make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, because we'll be going through each of these little setup items and lots more. I'll be just inviting you in to see, what it is that I'm doing in preparation for my next touring season, which will be beginning and end of May 2022, bearing in mind that I haven't operated this business since 2014, and I've got a lot of setup to do, so you'll hopefully learn quite a bit.